Hello to everybody.
It's okay.
Welcome. I'm John Hanna. I'm the Randy and Charles Wax Senior Fellow here at GINSA. And as always, we're extremely lucky to be joined by our distinguished fellow here at the Gemunder Center, Major General Yaakov Amidror. General, let us jump right in. I've got a lot of questions. As I said, you're stuck with the B team here at GINSA since all of our A team interviewers are off busy doing lots of other important things. But I'll do the best I can. I've got a lot of questions, so if you're able to be as quick as possible, I'd like to get through them. And any audience questions, of course, people ought to submit through the Q&A function on our Zoom. But let me just start with giving you a chance to do a very, a brief, quick overview of where things stand now in Gaza in terms of the major military lines of operation for the IDF.
Good evening, first of all. In Gaza, it's very clear.
In Gaza, focused on Gaza.
We are now towards the end of the beginning in Khan Yunis. I don't know if it will take days or 2 weeks, but this is the schedule, and we begin to prepare, and there are plans to the invasion to Rafah. It very much depends what will happen in the negotiations in Paris relating to the hostages. Will it be before, during the Ramadan? Probably it will not be before the Ramadan. We need time to move the population from there. This is the main problem for us. And it's going very well in the north, in which we are making specific raids into very accurate targets based on intelligence which we are taking out from the interrogations of the terrorists and all the data which was confiscated in the headquarters. We had three operations like that in Shati, in Zaytun, and today in another place, and it works very good. So this is the situation now in Gaza. We don't let unlike what's written in the media, we don't let the people to move from the south into the north. There is a force which is separating the two sides and doesn't let people to move from the south into the north.
Good. General, there's a lot of discussion, I would say even hand-wringing here in Washington about the Rafah operation. The concerns, as I understand them, one you mentioned, what do we do with 1 million displaced Palestinians that have gone to Rafah? Where can they possibly go and still have access to enough basic humanitarian needs? But there are two other concerns that maybe you can address as well. As I understand them, the second one is obviously the Egyptian concern and how Israel is dealing with that. Their fear that in any military operation, there's at least some risk that hundreds, thousands of Palestinians who they don't want to come into Sinai might decide to overwhelm their border and flee into Sinai. That's one. Two is that Rafah is one of only two humanitarian entry points into Gaza, and that if you're conducting military operations down at Rafah, you'll have to essentially close down that entry point and further restrict the amount of assistance that's coming to the civilians in Gaza. Can you address some of those concerns?
Yes. The second one is very easy. To build a safe corridor in which you can continue to move the trucks, it's very easy. We have a lot of experience doing it in the north and other places, so this is not an issue. The first one, the Egyptian, is a problem because the Egyptian fear from the Palestinians is surprising, I would say. We know that they despise the Palestinians. We know that they're afraid from Hamas, which is an military arm of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is the main opposition for the Egyptian regime. And we know that they don't want to be portrayed by others as country which cooperate with the Israelis in the new Nakba. I believe, I don't know, but I believe when and if we succeed to move the population from this area into safe havens inside the Gaza Strip, the pressure or the fear of the Egyptians will be very much reduced, if not eliminated. But I think that if that will be done well, we can get an understanding or coordination with the Egyptians.
Good. Just on the point of Rafah, do you think that an actual, let's say, a national command decision has been made that the issue of taking control of Rafah is not a question anymore of if, it's only when and under what circumstances the IDF goes to Rafah?
Formally, not. Practically, the important decision makers are clear about it. They understand that without the destruction of the 4 battalions of Hamas in Rafah, the victory will not be completed and will not be shown as a victory.
On the issue, you'd mentioned this, that a decision or Israel's policy currently is not to allow displaced Gazans from the north to return to the north. I mean, that would have been, one option for what might happen to 1 million or hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians, move them back to areas where Hamas's control has been defeated, dismantled, destroyed. Can you talk about what's involved in the decision, whether or not...
It's very clear. We understand that if Hamas will come back now in the present situation, before we succeeded to eliminate all the infrastructure of Hamas, Hamas will rebuild itself in the north, and this is something that we cannot agree. I'll give you an example. A week ago, more than a month after we retreated from the north part of Gaza, we found in the intelligence that there is a huge center of communication of Hamas under Shati refugee camp. And the whole operation went to this place to find the place and to take all the data from within. It was a very sophisticated center, which we knew roughly that it exists somewhere, but we didn't have enough information where it is exactly. And it will take time before we will clean completely the north part. After we clean, probably we will let the people of the north to go back home.
On the operations that are occurring now in the north, we've had some stories on it here in Washington, and I don't know if they caught some people by surprise. There is a little bit of a narrative that even while Israel reduced the size of its footprint in the north, that Israel declared it was engaging in mopping up operations, that it had defeated Hamas in the north, that in fact, there may be an effort to reconstitute Hamas. And this week, it looked like there were fairly large-scale operations, calls for evacuation again of populations from certain parts of the north. Can you just clarify that situation? What's actually happening?
I'll give you numbers, and you will understand. In the operation in the north part of Gaza, were 2 full divisions and another division which was weaker, let's say 2.5 divisions. The 2 operations had been done by less than a brigade. So at the end, you can say whatever you want. When it is coming to the numbers, it's clear. And I don't know if there was, I'm not sure, I don't know the details, but if there were any attacks by the Air Force, it was very minimal, very, very minimal. So I mean to say that Israel is going to reestablish its efforts in the north in an intensive operation, it's not connected to the situation on the ground.
Is what we are seeing happening in the north now kind of a look into the future of what Israeli operations are likely to look like?
Yes, at the end, if you want to compare it to something, Gaza will be like Area A in the West Bank. I mean, today there is no any soldier from the IDF in Jenin, not even one. But if next week we will have good information that the cell of terrorists is preparing something in Jenin, within a few hours, a force of the IDF will go in. We don't have even approval of the political level. It's done by the commanders on the ground, and that will be the same situation in Gaza at the end of the first stage of the operation. As I said, we have to fulfill it in Khan Yunis. There are some issues that we didn't finish in the center, near the between the two sides, and then the full operation in Rafah, which will take probably after moving all the population and re-entering of the ground forces, it will take more than a month.
A month in Rafah, you think? Yeah.
Theoretically, the Rafah brigade is not as strong as the one in Khan Yunis or the one in Gaza. But we don't know what are the changes, how many terrorists ran into the south, because that was the last stronghold. We don't know. So it kind of a question mark. Theoretically, it should be easier than Khan Yunis, but practically, I don't know.
In the north, General, do you have any kind of estimates of how many Hamas fighters still exist there?
No.
Can you?
At least I don't know. Maybe the intelligence has some assessment, but the real truth, it is almost impossible. The one who is living with his wife in somewhere in one apartment in a broken house, and he is civilian, and 4 o'clock afternoon he's taking some vegetables and a battery of his roaming phone. He's going somewhere in which he knows there are some rockets hidden under cover, and he opened the cover, put his battery, he's going back home. By the way, he's not dressing any military, there is no any military signs on it. And he's going back home and drinking coffee, and the rockets will be launched after half an hour. So the differentiation between now in the north, between the defeated Hamas forces and the civilians who didn't have any connection to Hamas, it's very, very problematic. What I learned from people coming from within Gaza is that it's almost in every apartment there are weapons. So every apartment that you enter, you find Kalashnikov, you find RPG. So people can move with civilian dress in the street to move from one place to another. They are going to that place, taking RPG, launching it, and going back with the civilian dress back to the street, entering to another apartment, taking Kalashnikov, shooting some bullets, and so it's very, very almost impossible to identify most of the. When there is an engagement, it's easier. Those who are fighting with you are supposed to die, but if there is not any engagement, it's almost impossible to identify.
Is it fair if we were to characterize the situation in the north now that there is no more coherent Hamas military organization, that we're talking about remnants, individuals, small group fighters, and that Hamas has basically lost its ability to exercise control over the population in northern Gaza?
No, over the population they can, because for that you need 20 people with guns. When the Israelis are out, 20 people with guns, and everyone who says something, they shoot him. I mean, the population is another story. The population is still afraid from Hamas because there are enough remnants of Hamas in Gaza, and they're afraid that they will be killed by those guys. I mean, they don't ask too many questions. They didn't ask before the operation, and they don't ask after the operation. So this is another issue. But if they can build something organized, battle in which they try to stop or block or something, That I think that it will be very hard for them, almost impossible. I don't know if Hamas knows how many tourists are still in the north.
Hmm.
It surprised me if they know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they know, but it will surprise me if they know.
On the issue of trying to figure out what could come after if Hamas does lose control, or we try to create some kind of alternative, we had a story this week, I don't know if you saw it, about a pilot program in part of Gaza City to try and empower, maybe in one neighborhood even, local leaders to kind of begin, that are not Hamas, not Fatah, to try and take control of their neighborhood. Have you heard about this? And what are your
I heard about it, but at the end of the day, it's not in our hands. It is decision that the Palestinians should take. We can help. And if they are not members of Hamas, we will be more than happy if it will happen, and we'll do whatever is needed. But I think that at the end, it is a decision that should be taken by the local people. For that, the prerequisite is smashing Hamas, because if they're afraid from Hamas, there is no way that they will do something. And this is why it is so important that the decision will be taken by them. And how can we help? What is the best help that we can provide is to smash Hamas.
On that point, do you think that Israel sees one of its roles is to smash those 20 Hamas guys that might get their weapons and try and stop the success of this pilot program that Israel's encouraging?
The answer, whoever will be identified as Hamas member, of course, if he's carrying a gun, it's even easier, should be killed. When we speak about elimination of the military wing of Hamas, capabilities of Hamas, we really mean it.
Yeah. Also, lots of stories this week, or in our major newspapers, a couple in the New York Times, one in the Wall Street Journal, talking about what they described as an even further deterioration, not in the issue of how much humanitarian aid is getting into Gaza, but just a breakdown in the distribution system, a level now of anarchy and chaos, with local people desperate, attacking convoys, threatening drivers, and you're having the World Food Program and others beginning to suspend their aid operations. Is this true, do you think? And it doesn't.
No problem, no question that there are such problems. I don't know if you remember the first part of the movie about Somalia, when the convoys are coming in and someone is standing on the truck and shoot in the air to stop the looting of the tracks. So
I think
I believe
Black Hawk Down for people.
Yeah, Black Hawk
who
Down.
want to go watch
Exactly.
it. Yeah,
Black Hawk Down.
very good movie.
Yes, probably it's true in some areas, or in many areas, I don't know. It's a war area in which there is no any kind of a formal hierarchy decision making, or forces that can impose strict order in the street. I mean, for sure it's happening. I don't know in what level and how much it's really disturbed from the humanitarian aid to go into the Gaza Strip. No question that it is a problem.
Yeah, but not one that the IDF can solve or sees as a mission to provide that kind of security for humanitarian convoy.
Not yet. I don't know. It might happen in the future. In this present situation, no one is ready to take responsibility for the needs of Gaza. Remember, our commitment to Gaza was ended in the 7th of October. We did everything before that to bring Gaza everything which can raise the life of the people inside. And after 7th of October, the appetite for such efforts in Israel is very minimal.
Good. Another report this week about a road being built south of Gaza City that essentially bisects Gaza from the Israeli border to the Mediterranean Sea. Can you just talk about that? Is that happening?
Yes,
And
this
what's
is
the military
it's
purpose?
happening. It's happening. That will be the main logistic access of the IDF to bring whatever is needed inside Gaza and to make easier the way of the forces who are raiding inside Gaza from Israel into their targets in Gaza, at the beginning in the north, but slowly it will go to the center and the south as well. I'm not sure that will be the only one which will be built. It very much depends on the intensity of the need.
Yeah. General, you talked about, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the hostage deal, but you said Rafah, once we get there, it could be a few weeks still. It may take a month, which takes us sometime, perhaps even into April, which is, I guess, longer than certain people felt. But then can you just give your own sense of timeline for how long Israel, even once it moves to the kinds of operations we're seeing in the north, does that throughout Gaza? Are we looking for most of 2024 into 2025 that Israel will be?
I believe that the intensive part will be ended at the middle of 24. And for how long Israel will raid into Gaza and will be in need, I don't know, a year at least, but maybe more.
Thank you.
It very much depends on what will happen inside Gaza. Will we see someone taking responsibility to rebuild Gaza, or it will be an anarchy in which Hamas and other organizations will try to use the situation to build military capabilities against Israel? We should be very sensitive not to let it happen again. I mean, the mistake that we did till the 7th of October will not occur twice.
We have a couple of questions from our audience, General. One is, can you talk about what's happening in the tunnels specifically? Has there been any kind of major combat and battles fought underground?
Unlike what we had in mind at the beginning of the war, we learned and we built some capabilities of special forces to go into the tunnels and to fight under the ground. And the war is very slow in Khan Yunis and other places, and it will probably be the same in Rafah, because we are fighting parallelly in both on the ground and under the ground. And you cannot do one of them too fast when the other one is still uncompleted. And yes, we are fighting inside the tunnels. We killed the terrorists there, and we pushed them in some areas out. We captured some of them. Yes, it is something new that we learned, and we are improving all the time our technique and technology. And yes, we are fighting under the ground.
General, I'm curious, is it fair to say that the challenge that Israel has faced with these tunnels in Gaza is unlike anything any other military has faced in the annals of the history of modern warfare?
Yes, I don't know all the details about the Japanese tunnel somewhere in the Pacific, but if you speak about the after Second World War wars, the answer is probably yes.
Okay. And in terms of the actual military goal, is it to render the entire 400 miles of tunnel network inoperable and unusable?
No, we don't have enough TNT in Israel for that, but we can import from other countries. What we learn in the system, that the system is very sophisticated, very deep, by the way. In some areas, it is 2 stages. That there are, how to call it, I don't know, centers of gravity in the system.
Yeah. Yes.
It's in areas in which there are headquarters, many tunnels coming in and out, and it is kind of a junction for the system. If you blow it, you don't have to go meter after meter to blow the other. But if you take all the centers of gravity in the junctions, it will neutralize. I mean, people can go down, but what they will do there? I mean, and you need, if you go down, you need to provide energy. Otherwise, you don't have oxygen. You have to push the oxygen in it. It's more sophisticated, but if you blow these means, it become very much kind of a trap more than an advantage.
Yeah. Okay. That's
But it will take time. It will take time to gain the control in all these junctions. Let's call it junctions, and to neutralize all the abilities to bring energy in. What we learned, by the way, it's very cool. I went to the unit which is making all the exploitation of the air photos and so on and so forth. And what they told me if you have anywhere in Gaza a school owned by UNRWA, a mosque, and a hospital, probably under this area, there is a big junction of the system, and probably headquarters and so on. And at the end, you saw the communication center, which was full of servers and so on and so forth, was under the headquarters of UNRWA, not a school of UNRWA, under the headquarters of UNRWA. So this is the practical situation in Gaza. When after we learned it, it is easier for us to identify. We are going after mosques, schools, and hospitals. It make our identification, our exploitation much easier.
I think in that case of UNRWA as well, there were actually electrical cables going from the UNRWA headquarters down into the Hamas data center.
Part of this cover is used by Hamas to bring the energy in, because they need the electricity to push the oxygen in. So it is very much connected, and it's very easy. If you have an hospital, you have a school, you have a mosque, you have many undercover ways to take electricity.
Yes, but of course, UNRWA sees no evil in all of these cases, and
no, they don't know what really happened there.
Yeah, General, I wanted to ask you. I don't want you to comment on whether or not Gadi Eisenkot wrote a letter to the government, to the cabinet, but the thrust of this reporting was that he wrote a letter to the in which he kind of criticized the war cabinet on the grounds that, at least since the initial decisions of the war, for the remaining 3 months, 4 months, it hasn't really made key strategic decisions. It's avoided them, and instead is allowing the war to be run on the basis purely of tactical achievements. Again, I don't want you to comment on whether or not General Eisenkot actually said any of these things, but it's a common criticism that you hear a lot here in Washington. Israel's being brilliant tactically, but is not sort of really advancing the big strategic goals. I don't know what those goals are, other than making sure Hamas can never come back and there's an alternative. I think they're getting at what comes the day after there. But can you comment on this criticism?
Yes, there is an argument in Israel about the day after. I think, in my personal opinion, I know that not all the Israelis share this opinion, that it is much, much too early to discuss and for sure to decide what will happen at the day after. Why? I have 3 reasons. Why? One, the minute that we declare what we want to achieve the day after, who will be responsible, who will take care, whatever, we have a partner to the decision about the war. If I'm Mr. or a state or organization, whatever, that you, the Israelis, want me to take responsibility after the war, let me influence the war. If I have to be responsible after the war, you cannot make all your decision by yourself. First, I don't want this partner. I don't know who is the partner. I don't want. Second, it very much depends on the results of the war. For example, what you mentioned, that the local people will take responsibility. It's one of the alternatives. I found five alternatives. It's one of the alternatives. But it's clear that this option has any chance to succeed only if, it's a big if, we succeed to eliminate Hamas almost totally. Otherwise, no one will be stupid enough to take responsibility. So it's so much connected to the result of the war that it is too early to decide before I know the results. And the third, it's what you hinted. At the end, we have to focus on one issue now, and all the others are secondary. To eliminate the military capability of Hamas totally. And not to ask now questions about the day after, the day before, the day after. No. Israel is busy only with one thing, and we should not. So if that was written by my good friend Gadi, I don't agree with it. If this is what he had in mind, I don't know what, I didn't see the paper, so I don't know what he had in mind. I think it's too early, and it's not wise to decide now what will happen in the day after, and probably not even to discuss it seriously. The papers should be prepared by security guys, by the Foreign Office guys, by the National Security Council, and so on and so forth. All the paper work should be done, that the alternative will be clear and everyone understand what does it mean, what are the pro and cons, and so on and so forth. But not to discuss it publicly, and for sure not to decide.
So you don't believe that military commanders on the ground need that kind of guidance about the political objectives of the war?
There is a clear, very clear mission, very, very clear mission to distract, to destroy, to eliminate the military capability of Hamas, point. And they should bother with all the other considerations.
Just to clarify, is there also an imperative to destroy Hamas governance in Gaza, or is that?
Yeah, as an organization, that Hamas will not be able to function in Gaza as an organization.
Okay. We got a question, General. I don't know if you have any insight on this. The question is, what is Israel's current estimate of the numbers of Israeli and Palestinian casualties in Gaza?
We know the exact number. We lost 230 soldiers in the whole operations since the beginning of the ground operation. I'm not speaking about the 7th of October. And the Palestinian members of Hamas which had been killed are around 12,000.
And in terms of Israeli troops that have been injured, are there any numbers on those?
There are numbers, but I don't remember. But it's like every war. There are percentage which equivalent to the number of the people which had been killed. It was published. I don't remember.
Okay. Another question we have that's a little off topic, but an important.
But one remark, if I may say, about
please.
The Israeli situation. Our health system is so sophisticated that there are many soldiers and officers which had been injured since the 7th of October, which went back to the battlefield. They were in the hospital. There is a special force called a GOZ. It's a battalion size special operation. The lieutenant colonel who is commanding it was injured very severely. In the first, I know the family, so I know the first week it was not clear where he's going. Is he going up or will stay with us? He's now fighting with his battalion in Gaza.
Yeah.
At least he went to Khan Younis, maybe they are out, I don't know. But there are many So the numbers of injured in Israel is something that you have to look at it. Of course, if someone lost his leg or his hand, he will not go back. But those which are, the health system is very good, and many went back to fight with their units. Today, they published a story about someone who lost his ability to see because of pressure under the, he had to take all the remains of those who had been killed, butchered, and raped in the 7th of October, and he lost his ability to see for 5 days. And the psychologists say that it's a known phenomena. The brain is cutting, from all their explanations. He's fighting now back with his unit.
Yeah, amazing.
So the health system is very sophisticated and can bring back many of the jobs, not all of them, of course, not the majority even, but many of them back to the battlefield.
Yeah. General, you mentioned that after last week, there was renewed pessimism about the prospects for a hostage deal. This week, it sounds like people are more optimistic again after the Hamas visit to Cairo. And we have a meeting, I think, coming tomorrow in Paris again between the intelligence heads and the Qatari prime minister. Any updates on that you can provide? Is the optimism warranted?
I'm not an optimistic, I don't know. And I think that optimism here is too early to be the right attitude. We said, and we are saying again, we are ready to pay high price, very high price, but not any price. And how we push Hamas to understand that he will not get any price. It will not happen. Even if we have to go back to fight tomorrow morning in Rafah. We gave them what is unacceptable. It's very clear for them. They try after the first meeting in Paris to change the equation to make it much more problematic from our point of view. And we said, okay, no, we don't come. The rumors are that they changed a little bit their demands. Let's see.
Okay. General, we've got a question. Again, it was a little bit off topic in terms of a war update, but it's an important question. I don't know if you have any information about it. It says where quite a few news reports that the Israeli economy has now entered a deep recession. Can you speak at all to that?
Untrue, totally untrue.
Untrue.
Totally untrue. You can see it in the street. I went the day before yesterday to a restaurant in Ra'anana. The whole restaurant was full. The guys coming back from the service, going back to the market. Of course, it's a war. We have many expenses and investment are less than the regular country, but we are not in a crisis, not at all. At least as it is, as we can be judged now based on the information that was published by the government. And in Israel, the statistic is independent agency. The government cannot make any change in the numbers or to influence the numbers. As far as we can judge from all these sensors which exist, we are not in a crisis. And we should be very responsible in the future, not to be in the crisis in the future.
Yeah, and the Moody's downgrade, was that a major issue for Israel with big implications?
If you want, the market, the value of companies in Israel is higher. And the shekel is very strong.
Okay, good, thank you. I want to now move to two other subjects. I want you to get to the north,
but I must say,
yeah,
here we understand that the pressure on the economy will grow the longer the war will continue.
Of course.
And of course, if it will be another stage in Lebanon, it will be a totally different situation. That will be very problematic to the economy as well, because we will have to recruit back all the reserve forces, and that is game changer.
Just on that point, is it fair to say that the reserve units that have been brought out of Gaza, that most of those people are back to their day-to-day jobs in the Israeli economy, or are they still with their units just moving to the north and training and
No.
getting
What
ready
we
again?
did, no, I don't know to say numbers, but I think that 80, 85, or even 90% of them are back in the market.
Okay.
And what we did, we took them out, we gave them a very short but intensive training, and then they had been released. Some of them know when they will be recruited again, because we need forces to continue in other areas, for example, in the West Bank. And we took out most of the regular units. We even reduced the forces around the Khan Yunis, because we want all the regular units to go for being trained for the next stage in Lebanon if will be a need. They have a lot of experience now after 100 days of war, but there are some lessons that they should forget.
Yeah.
Because the situation in Lebanon is totally different, the terrain is different, the organization is different, the amount of some weapon system is different. Most of all the regular units which went out from Gaza went for training centers in the north, and are involved in this process.
Yeah. Okay. Before I move to the north quickly, General, I just wanted to ask you about the coming of Ramadan on or about March 10th. There always is a degree of nervousness about the level of religious fervor and intensity associated with Ramadan, and concerns obviously on Jerusalem and what may or may not happen there. Can you talk about how concerned you are in general about what happens in and around Ramadan, and what precautions Israel is taking to try and keep the situation calm?
I think that the center of all these sensitivities at the end of the day is in the Temple Mount. It's true that there are other areas, but this is the main one. And here we should be very cautious. One side, not to let everyone to go to the Temple Mountain, and there are ages in which the people are more easy going to demonstrate and and violating the situation. But at the same time, we have to keep the ability of Muslims to make what they think they should do in Ramadan, including in Temple Mountain. How to balance between the two sides of the equation, this is what the decision maker should make. We should be very cautious.
Is it true that in terms of any restrictions that are placed, it's not just on Palestinians coming from the West Bank, it could be on Israeli Arabs as well?
It's now we are arguing that there is arguments in the cabinet, and maybe in some restriction will be put on the Arab Israelis as well. If I would be asked, I said that we should do it in a very minimum way.
Okay. Let's move to the north. Why don't you give us your few minutes of assessment of what's been the activity in the north over the last week? Higher, lower, about the same?
The same, when each side tried to show the other side that if we cross red line, we know to cross the red line as well. For example, there was a drone which was found in a place called Arbel. It's north of Tiberias and near the Sea of Galilee. And the day after, we bombed around Sidon. If you put it on the map, it's 50 kilometers to the south and 50 kilometers to the north. I mean, if you know how to reach my targets in 50 kilometers from the border to the south, I know to find targets 50 kilometers north of the border. I mean, both sides tried to keep it within the limitations of the grain ground, which is the fence in the middle, and now 10 kilometers to here, 10 kilometers here. What is the difference between the two sides? We are making all the efforts to strike military targets, and we succeeded to kill more than 200, probably close to 220. I don't know the number, which is formal number is 208 members of of Hezbollah. I don't know if Hezbollah lost in 4 months more than 2,000 people, even in the worst days of Syria. It's big number for Hezbollah. And all of them,
208, you said, about.
208. This is the formal number of Hezbollah.
And how many
What is-
Israeli fatalities?
I think it's less than 20. Because they are launching their missiles into buildings, real estate kind of targets. And we are trying to do our best. We made some mistakes from time to time to kill the terrorists themselves and to hit storage of munition and so on and so forth. And from what I hear, the success is we are very satisfied with the results. We succeeded to erode part of their capabilities. I mean, it's not in the level that will disturb them to fight against Israel, but it's good results. I'll give you, look at two numbers. The numbers that Israel lost, taking the whole part of the Gaza Strip, what we achieved till today is the number of the terrorists which Hezbollah lost in a war in which he didn't achieve anything. We stand at the same line. The only achievement of Hezbollah, and it might lead to a war, by the way, is the fact that Israel evacuated around 80,000 people from the north, and they will not go back before they will feel secure. And to achieve this security, we might have to go to a war.
General, there was it a rocket or missile that was fired on? Is it Safed, the military command, and a woman soldier was killed sometime this week.
A week ago.
A week ago. That was a Hezbollah attack, we believe?
Yes, it was Hezbollah. Yes.
How far is that from the border?
No, it's not so far from the border, but this is the headquarters of the North. I mean, It's not here. It's not the depth of the attack. It's the character of the target.
Can you say, in terms of, you said we've kept this within some boundaries and rules of the game, even if the rules of the game have begun to expand a little bit, let's say since October 7th.
Yeah.
But are you, because we all know, as bad as the Radwan forces are, the big strategic threat to Israel from Hezbollah is the projectiles, particularly the precision-guided missiles and long-range rockets. Are you avoiding hitting that prime asset of Hezbollah? Are you purposefully not taking the opportunity to degrade its
No, because the decision of both sides is not to go to a full war. The minute that full war will be on the table, no question, these are the legitimate targets to begin with. But if the two sides keep the decision not to go to a full war, it's out of the game area, or the rules of the game, depends.
Right. Okay. So for the moment, your fairly consistent analysis that both sides really would prefer not to get into a full-scale war at this time. That's still your position. There can always
I judge what they're doing. I don't know what they have in mind to prepare. I don't know next month.
Yeah.
If you judge their what they are doing, their actions, it's clear that this is the decision on both sides.
Very good. I wanted to ask you about, we had a report this week that even before the U.S. retaliation against the Iraqi and Syrian militias for the killing of the 3 U.S. soldiers in Jordan, the Iranians, the IRGC, was going to all of its proxies, or at least many of them, saying, cool it, guys, this is getting too dangerous. And we all noticed that since the U.S. retaliation, which was significantly larger than it had been in the past, at least in Iraq and Syria, we've seen a period now of several weeks of relative calm with no attacks on U.S. forces. What lessons would you draw out of out of this sequence of
The,
events?
the very old lesson from the past. The Iranians respect those who are using force, and they don't want any engagement with the United States of America. And I think that this is a lesson known to everyone who is dealing with the Middle East. It's known for years that the Iranians do not want any confrontation with America, and they respect when America is using its force.
Final question, General, and then we'll let you go because it's late in Israel. It has to do, it's a political question more, but there was a resolution, I think, passed, I can't remember if it was the War Cabinet or the Security Cabinet or the full cabinet, rejecting the idea of a recognition of a Palestinian state. I suppose in response to reports that the Biden administration, the British, others were planning such a step potentially. Can you just talk about
99 out of 120 voted against it. I mean, it's very rare, very. I cannot remember when it happened last time.
Yeah.
The sentiment in Israel against any dream of an independent Palestinian state is very clear. We had two tests. One was Oslo. It was ended with 122 Israelis killed in 1 month, spring 2002, by terrorists coming from the areas controlled by the Palestinians. We had to go to operation to take control again of the cities of Area A, military of Area A, and since then we are going out and in and out. By the way, it took us 4 years to clean the West Bank before it was reduced to 1% of this number, 15 a year. Instead of 122 in 1 month, we had for 15 years in 15 Israeli killed by terrorists coming from the West Bank in a year. So it's 1%. In the last 3 years, it's raised to 4%. We are around 5 per month. So the second test was the unilateral retreat from Gaza. We went out of Gaza. We took even the buried Jews in the graveyards. And we try to do whatever we can to help the people of Gaza. We provide 18,000 people from Gaza jobs in Israel to work. And we allow other countries to bring money to Gaza. We gave them electricity, water, whatever was needed inside Gaza. And slowly, the standard of living was raised in Gaza. And then came the 7th of October. Assuming that there is a Palestinian state, 2025, we have an independent state in Gaza. A year later, you will put pressure on us and the Palestinians, go to elections. Can you guarantee us that Hamas will not win the elections? In the only elections which had been taken part within the Palestinian society, Hamas won the majority in the parliament. If tomorrow Ania will run against anyone from Fatah, he will win. So it will be a Hamas state, but not in Gaza, but here, 10 kilometers from my house in Ra'anana, 12 kilometers from my house in Ra'anana, and near Kfar Saba, Jerusalem, Petah Tikva. I mean, the whole Israel will be like the settlements around Gaza. We are not ready to live in this situation. Today, people close to the West Bank saying that they're afraid that there will be a raid from the West Bank into Israel, but it will be a Palestinian state controlled by Hamas, and no one can guarantee that it will not be controlled by Hamas. I think that after the experience of Oslo and the 7th of October, the ability to convince the people of Israel is almost none. I'm not sure that even the Arab Israelis want a Palestinian state in these circumstances. They will not say it, of course. But I will not be surprised if third of them will say, no, it's too dangerous for us living near the border, near the 67 line. So, I mean, it's a democratic country. I don't see anyone imposing this solution on the population of Israel when 90% are against it, or 80% are against it.
Yeah, yeah.
And by the way, it's not because of ideology.
Right.
Most of the Israelis are against it because of security, not because of ideology. The experience of Oslo and the unilateral retreat from Gaza. I know that the Americans are speaking about kind of reforms in the come back with list of reforms that had been done, and then we will begin to discuss the ability. I mean,
Yeah.
with all due respect, it cannot work, it will not work, and I don't see it happening in the next generation. That will happen 100 years ago.
I think it's a very important, powerful message, General, in part because there is genuinely a false and really kind of libelous narrative here that the only problem with getting to a Palestinian state is Prime Minister Netanyahu and his right-wing government, when in fact, if you look at the way General Gantz and General Eisenkot voted and 99 Knesset
members of Knesset out of 120. And remember that the Arab Israelis vote automatically for sure against such a decision. But how many of them in their hearts understand that this is a danger to their own people? I don't know.
Yeah, and I remind everybody, if you just go look at President Herzog, not a man of the right, a man of the left, his speech in Davos, where he essentially said, no Israeli in their right mind are really thinking about handing a Palestinian state to anybody at this point in time. So it's across the board. It's a broad consensus. And I think American officials and Western officials need to come to grips with that fact that that's the way our only democratic ally and partner in the Middle East feels about the current situation. And we've got to work with that rather than try and cram something down the throat of our most powerful, best, closest partner in the region that's just been through one of the most traumatic events in its history. Anyway, I'll stop there, General. We kept you a long time. You were fantastic, as always.
Thank you very much.
I know you're coming here next week, and I'm hoping
yes, and this is why we cannot make the brief next year with me, because I'm the same time that we are speaking now. Next week I'll be in the flight back to Israel. I'm coming only for 48 hours.
All right. Well, we still hope to see you after that. So thank you again. Thanks to our audience, and we'll see everybody soon, I hope. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.